this is actually a fairly strong suit as they go, but the question is, well, what does it accomplish? And if they go big, try to get some kind of breakup, that would be a big deal.
How likely do you think that is?
Oh God, I can't put a number on it, but the challenge I think for this suit is, even though I think they chose their best lawsuit, it's almost an exact copy of the Microsoft case they won in the 90s. The remedies, the natural remedies, are just, well, knock it off. Don't make the don't make Google the default search engine, and that isn't really going to transform the industry. But so I think the odds are actually lower on this, of there being a real breakup down the road. But as they said, they've said remedies are nothing is off the table, is what they said.
Tim, I also found that to be one of the most compelling lines that we heard out of that call. But I just wonder what's different this time. We can't forget that back during the Obama administration, there was another investigation that didn't result in any structural changes at Google. Essentially, concluded that there was mixed motives within the company. There's, yes, a desire to hobble rivals, but also a desire to advance products that are free.
It's a good point. I think what's changed, I think the kind of public consciousness has changed. There's a lot more support, I think, for a lawsuit against big tech. I also think a big thing that's changed since 8 years ago is the sense that these companies aren't going anywhere. I think there was a question, well, they're still relatively young. Are they going to stick around, or are we going to be talking about someone else in 8 years? Well, we're still talking about Google and Facebook 8 years later. So I think that's a big
right. That sentiment, though, has existed in Europe, and European regulators have been at the forefront of these sort of changes and charges against the big tech giants. Are there any lessons that we can learn from the other side of the Atlantic, particularly how difficult it is to actually enforce some of these regulations once we may have them?
Yeah, I mean, putting my own view on this, I think the Europeans have not done a great job in coming up with remedies that really help anybody or do anything meaningful. They don't want to. You don't want to break the product. And I think, frankly, I was at the Federal Trade Commission during the last investigation, and one of the big concerns we had was we don't want to make the product worse. The Justice Department's suit is trying to open up some of the channels where someone could compete with Google in search. That's their big idea. So it's actually very good for companies like Bing or DuckDuckGo, or Bing's not a company, I know, Microsoft. People who, and maybe there's some other search engine out there that can try to get a start now. But those are sort of the beneficiaries. So in that way, it's different. It's trying to promote competition as opposed to restructure the product.
Tim, I got to say, though, the Microsoft case was a lot easier to understand. It's like, you killed Netscape by tying a browser to Windows. Okay, I get that. Google, it's like they're throwing out some advertiser stuff and then some user stuff, and they're like, it could be any of these things. Look at all this soup of abuses. Pick the best argument. I don't know if that works, especially in this environment where we know it's not just Google. They're going after multiple giants that are all competing with each other for multiple, accused violations. Doesn't that, in a way, weaken the case?
I mean, every case is taken on its merits. I think the core of the Justice case is relatively strong, not that hard to understand. It's basically that they sealed all the, they put concrete over any possible way to challenge them. That's their lawsuit, which is exactly what Microsoft did. Microsoft had a clearer victim, Netscape. I guess the victim here is Bing, and Bing is not the most sympathetic victim, I have to admit. They have nice pictures and everything, but it's hard to think of Microsoft as this poor little scrappy company. Maybe DuckDuckGo is a better victim, but it's Microsoft had the case. I don't think is that complicated. Maybe it's getting confused by some of the advertising stuff.
Right.
Core of the case is just they insulated themselves from any competition.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.